There is a particular kind of joy that sneaks up on you. Not the kind that arrives on schedule, wrapped up neatly, the kind you've planned for. But I mean the kind of joy that catches you off guard, mid-sentence, mid-hymn, mid-ordinary Tuesday or Wednesday of the week. The kind that suddenly cracks something open in your chest and reminds you that you're a part of something so much larger than yourself that you can hardly, barely hold it. I think that's the kind of joy today is meant to be. About a debt paid. It is a cause for celebration. We've gathered here this morning to celebrate something real and significant. With the sale of our land, a mortgage, years of payments, of budgets stretched and offerings giving, of building campaigns and quiet sacrifices and faithful stewardship. And that mortgage is paid, done, finished. And I want to say clearly without apology, that is worth celebrating. That is worth a full-throated, tear in your eye, arm around your neighbor kind of gratitude. Because behind every dollar that went toward this campus, this building, is a person, a family, a decision to give rather than keep, an act of love made concrete in the form of a check written and a pledge honored. And we didn't get here by accident. We got here because people loved this community enough to invest in it year after year, long before they could see the finish line. And I want to tell you the particular shape of how we got here, because the story is the journey, and it is far more beautiful than you might at first realize. It's a story of Messiah that goes back all the way into the early 60s. But where I want to pick the story up is in 1995 and the years of ministry between 1995 and now. In 1995, 31 years ago, Messiah invited Redeemer Lutheran Church in Placentia to join us. They had sold their property, and that enabled us to purchase the acreage on the corner, the south end of our campus. And we developed it, we built it, we've used it. And those acres became a part of the fabric of our common life, part of what made this place feel like a place of love. That land served us generously for 3 decades. It was a gift that has kept on giving. And then just a few weeks ago, we closed on the sale of that 2 acres of property. Now, I want to be honest with you. When you hear that a congregation has sold part of its campus, the very human instinct is to frame that as a loss. Something we had but no longer have. Ground we once walked on that no longer belongs to us and now belongs to someone else. And I understand the feeling. There is a bittersweet quality to it all. But here's what I want you to hear clearly today. Clearly and without reservation. This is not about what we've lost. This is about what we've gained. Because that land is not going away. It is not becoming something that has nothing to do with our mission. That land is being developed into housing, homes, 40 new households, maybe 100 or more new neighbors, some of them in moderate income housing, people who need a decent, dignified, affordable place to live in a community where that's increasingly hard to find. Let that sink in for just a moment. The South 2 acres that served this congregation so faithfully for 3 decades are now going to serve this community in an equally faithful way. The land that helped build our campus is now going to help build someone's homes. The ground we walked on is going to become the ground beneath the feet of families and children who need a place to land. And that is not a loss. That is the mission continuing in a form we didn't entirely plan, but that God did. I believe God's been shaping this all along. We're not losing land when that development goes up. We're gaining neighbors. 40 households. Maybe, as I said before, 100 or more people. People who are going to wake up every morning within walking distance of this church. people whose children might wander into our parking lot, onto our play yard. People who are going to be our literal neighbors, not in the abstract theological sense, but actually physically, concretely live next door to us. This land, in a sense, represents 3 acts of grace. The land gave us a campus, a beautiful campus, for 3 decades. The land now has given us the ability to pay off a mortgage that we could no longer sustain. And now that land is giving us neighbors, serving us 3 times. I don't know how you can describe that as anything except grace. Let's take a look and think about the faithful gift through the years of ministry. Here's the thing about the 65 years of Messiah's ministry. The faithfulness has never been confined to a building. We've loved families here. Sometimes 3 generations sitting shoulder to shoulder in a pew, a grandmother, a son, a child, all of them held by this place. We've loved children through our preschool, our Sunday school, our youth programs, our vacation Bible school. We've watched kids grow up in these buildings and become adults who still call this home. But the love never stopped at the property line. It never has and it never will. We've crossed borders. We've gone to Mexico, Cuba, Uganda, Kenya, Namibia. People from Messiah have gone to Romania, Brazil, to Chile, to Vietnam, to the Philippines. And in those places, we've built homes, medical clinics. We've sponsored kids to go to school. We've built schools. We've dug wells and laid pipes so the families could have safe, clean water. The kind of thing that most of us never think twice about until we meet someone who's lived without it. We've welcomed refugee families and helped them begin again. We've walked mile after mile alongside those fighting cancer. We've provided food for the hungry and shelter for the unhoused. And we've loved our neighbors in 100 quiet ways that never made it into a bulletin or a budget line, ways known only to the people who received that love and to the God who saw it. That is who we have been for 65 years. That is who we have been. This congregation who has poured itself out across this sanctuary, across this city, and across this world. So when I tell you that this land is about to become home to 40 new households right outside our door, understand this. It's not a departure from who we are. It's simply the next place the love is going to land. Now, it's fair to say that even though there is some sadness and grief in losing the 2 acres to the south, we're not a people in exile or without a home. The people that prophet Isaiah referred to in the reading I read earlier that he was speaking to, they were truly a people in exile, a people who had lost everything, living in the wreckage of what used to be, grieving what was gone, haunted by the memory of better days. And into that grief, God speaks. And what God says is startling. Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Do you not perceive it? That question almost sounds impatient, almost like God is leaning forward and saying, I know you're still looking backward, but look right here, right now. Something is happening. Can you see it? Even though we're not in exile and we've not lost everything, this verse, God still has something profound to say to us today. And I want to be careful here because this text is often misread. God is not saying the past doesn't matter. The God of Israel is deeply, persistently a God of memory. I'm the God who brought you out of Egypt, who carried you through the wilderness, who has never once let you go. Memory is sacred. Memory is the foundation of faith. And what God is saying more specific, do not be so locked into what was that you can't receive what is coming. Don't be so devoted to the memory of the former things that you miss the new things that already are happening in your midst. And that word is for us today. Because if we look at the land of the south and we see only what we've given up, we're going to miss what God is already doing. We will miss a new thing even now springing forth, quite literally in the form of foundations that are going to be poured and homes being built and families preparing to move in. If we grieve the acreage lost, we will miss the neighbors. And the neighbors are the mission. For however long we carried this mortgage, a portion of every offering was already spoken before it could become direct mission. Now, I understand that our property and our buildings are part of our mission outpost. But now, that's over. Now those dollars for mortgage can go directly into the work, into the ministry, into the people. No prior claim, no debt to service. Just mission, and undivided and unencumbered. And beyond the financial freedom, we're being given something you can't put a dollar amount on. A neighborhood full of new people who are going to need exactly what Messiah exists to offer. Welcome, community, belonging, and grace. Do you not perceive it? God did not just provide a way to pay off our mortgage. God gave us a mission field literally right outside our door. Luke tells us that Jesus stood up in the synagogue in Nazareth, unrolled the scroll of Isaiah and read, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And then he sat down and said, "Today, this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." Today, not someday. Not when the conditions are right for everything and everything is all figured out. Today. Notice who Jesus says he's anointed for. The poor, the captive, the blind, the oppressed. He's not describing an abstract category of distant theoretical people. He's describing the people who lived in the neighborhood around the synagogue. The people everybody already knew. Some of them struggling, invisible, overlooked, desperate for someone to look them in the eye and say, "You matter to God and you matter to us." Those people are coming to live next door to us. Those people who need to know that they're loved. Some of the households built on that land will be moderate income families. Because people for whom housing has become a struggle, people for whom finding a stable, affordable place to live in this community has felt like an impossible dream. And that land, our land, is going to help make that dream real for them. I want you to feel the weight of that because I think it's a profound opportunity before this congregation. We didn't set out 30 years ago to address a housing crisis. We bought land for our campus. We built something beautiful here. And then when the time came to release it, it became something that addressed a real need in our community. And that's not coincidence. That's what happens when a community of faith stays rooted in a place long enough, faithful enough, present enough, that its decisions ripple outward in ways it never fully anticipated. That's the church being the church, not just serving the community in programs, but so woven into the fabric of a neighborhood that even a real estate transaction becomes an act of ministry. The writer of 1 John is almost relentless on this point. "Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God." So many saints have given themselves and helped love the people around us far and wide. Many of them are no longer with us. They're people who loved well, and God has welcomed them home with the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." In 1 John, we hear these words, and they remind us why we do what we do. We love because God first loved us. That sentence is our whole theology in 7 words. It's the engine underneath everything we do. We don't love because we're particularly virtuous. We love because we've been loved first, wildly, extravagantly, without condition, to the point of a cross and an empty tomb. And that love got into us, and now it cannot stay contained. It spills out. It overflows. It looks for someone to land on. And the people it needs to land on are quite literally about to move in next door. 40 households. People who may never have set foot in a Lutheran church, who may carry wounds from religion or simply having no connection to faith at all. People are going to wake up one Sunday morning and see our parking lot filled with cars and wonder what happens inside these walls. And what will they find out when they walk through the doors that first time? I believe they will find us, a congregation, a people that knows who it is and whose it is. A people who have learned over decades of shared life and sacrifice what it means to love one another and to welcome a stranger. A community that has built love into the very ground beneath its feet. Ground that is now, by the grace of God, becoming someone else's home. I want to say one more thing about the saints. There are people who gave to this congregation who are no longer with us. People who wrote checks that they would never see cashed in full. People who over 30 years ago voted to purchase that land and then rolled up their sleeves and helped develop it into the campus that we enjoy today. People who did not know, could not have known that their decision would one day set this congregation financially free and put 40 new households in our neighborhood. Their fingerprints are all over this place. Their love is built into these walls, poured into this parking lot, invested in the 2 acres to the south where someone's home is now going to stand. And today we honor them. And here's how we honor them most faithfully. Not by just preserving what they built as if it were a relic or a museum to be protected, but by continuing the work they started. By being as faithful in our generation as they were in theirs. By looking at the families about to become our neighbors and saying, you're welcome here, you matter here. This community is yours too. That is how we carry the legacy forward, not by holding on to land, but by loving the people the land will now shelter. Beloved, we're at a threshold moment. Not the end of something, but the beginning of something. The mortgage is paid. The land this congregation developed and used and loved for 30 years was closed in escrow just a couple weeks ago. And it became the gift that made this freedom possible. And now that same land is becoming home to 100 or more people. Some of those families for whom affordable housing is no longer an abstract policy, but now becoming a daily lived reality. The land has served us. The land will now serve them. And in serving them, it will call us to be everything we say we are. The question before us is not, can we afford to stay? The question is, what are we called to do with what God has given us and with the neighbors God is giving us? I believe the answer is more. More love, more courage, more generosity, more welcome, more willingness to be inconvenienced and stretched and changed by the work of the gospel, because the Spirit of the Lord is still upon us. Because God is still doing a new thing, springing forth right now, just south of our property line, in the form of those homes being built for people who need them. And the only question is whether we'll perceive it. Will we remember who we are? We are the church of Jesus Christ. Broken, beautiful, faithful, imperfect, claimed by a grace we didn't earn and cannot lose. And we remember whose we are. We belong to God, always have, always will. And that belonging is both our deepest comfort and our most urgent calling. So today we celebrate. We give thanks. We've paid off the debt, and we sing and we eat and we remember together. And then we look south toward the 40 households, the families on their way. And we say, welcome. We've been waiting for you. We didn't know it was you we were waiting for. But you were coming, and here we are. and there is room at this table for every single one of you. The land gave its gifts 3 times over. Now it's our turn. Let's go. Amen.